Pop, what's going on, man?
Son, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Fired up. It is hot in Los Angeles. Is it hot by you?
No.
It's 98
Played,
degrees today.
played around in the 50s yesterday, meaning temperature, not score. Just to
Ah,
be
yeah.
clear.
Yeah. Well, maybe on the front.
I might have hit a 50 on the back nine.
There you go. Yeah. I've posted a few fives this
Front nine
season
was
so
sub
far. Right.
50. Back
We're turn
nine
we're turning it around, man.
might
You
have had a
can't
5-0 in it.
you
I didn't hit
can't
my age. That's a good sign.
that's good. That's key. That's key. Anyways, we're getting into it today. It's football is back, man. There are fresh pictures of players and pads and coaches. DQ's got the fresh Concords on with the backwards hat. You know, once you see DQ with the backwards hat on, you know we're getting close.
We
You
need another
start getting
backwards
fired
hat
up.
episode.
We do. Maybe for the preseason or something like that. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Hey, they win the Super Bowl this year. We might go the full shave and the backwards hat. Why not, right? But yeah,
Would
so
love to see that.
we got lots of fun stuff coming up, man. We got the schedule release coming up this week. So that'll be the fresh pod for y'all next Monday. I'm sure we'll be
Is
breaking
that
down the
going to be our
schedule.
first prediction pod? It's
Is it
got to
was
be, right?
it's the 14th, so yeah, it's next week. So we'll have to go down and predict the
Game by
schedule.
game?
I'm thinking 17-0. Do you think over under pop? We predicted 11-6 for the Carson Wentz season. You think we end over or under there after this year, after the Jaden
We
Daniels
got to see
performance?
how it plays out.
Gonna have to see how it plays out. But the biggest headline coming out of that one right now is the Commanders potentially playing in Spain versus the
Madrid.
Dolphins in Week 11. Would be November 16th. What do you think about playing in Madrid, Pop?
I'm cool with it. Cool with it. I mean, it's natural that they would want that. I much prefer that over that Brazil game week one because I didn't want to lose
Sure.
the opportunity to come see the Chargers out by you. So I was actually happy when I saw the headline because I was like, okay, that means the Chargers game isn't happening. I mean, it's going to be in LA, but I'm cool with it. I know you are really looking forward to that 6 a.m. kickoff time on the
I'll tell you
West
what.
Coast.
I'll tell you what. Check the tape. Check the tape. I've talked about it non-related to the Commanders before on the pod several times. Every time we talk about international games, I think international games are the stupidest thing. I hate international games. I can't stand it. I think it's so dumb, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. When when international soccer teams, when Milan comes to the United States to play, do they play a game that counts towards their Serie A rankings? No. They play Real Madrid, all the third stringers play, and the starters play for like maybe half the game, right? It doesn't count. It's an exhibition. Why? Because traveling transcontinental to play the sport that you're paid to compete in creates a distinct competitive disadvantage on a week to week basis. The bottom line is the team playing internationally gets screwed compared to a team playing domestically. And if you're looking at the Dolphins, you're talking about a 2.5 hour flight from Dulles to Miami International, right? You're talking about instead of that, and guys are at home with their families all week practicing, and then on Friday they fly down. Instead of that, you're talking about now the team's got to fly to Spain, adjust to the time changes, you're in hotels all week. It's a completely different game at that point. And both teams are doing it, right? So it's fair from a team to team perspective. But the fact that a loss in Miami counts the same as a loss in Madrid, that much I don't think is fair. And for the Americans, nobody wants to watch football at 9 in the morning. I don't want to watch football at 6 in the morning. I think it's complete. I hate it. I really hate it. I think it's a total junk money grab from the NFL trying to get international bases more into the sport that's already just printing money in America. Couldn't be doing better. And I don't think I think it's bad for the competitive integrity of the game. I think if you don't have a bye week the week after, which you spoke to the week one in Brazil, right? These guys fly back to the United States and then play in America week two.
Yeah,
It's completely unfair for the players. Um, so my solution, and then I'm going to stop talking about this. My solution is we should play the preseason overseas. Preseason's already kind of a joke, right? Guys are training.
That's the problem, though. Like, soccer is such a different game than football, right? Like, you're going to be watching a bunch of backups, and even though European fans may not be as tuned into it as
that's my point. That's my point. If a European fan who doesn't watch American football sees Chris Rodriguez out there, they're going like this. They're having a blast. They're not there because they love the game. They're there because this cool American thing is coming there and they want to participate. Some of them love the game. Of course, there are international fans. I don't want to act like there's none, but they don't fill the stadium up. There's not 70,000 diehard Commanders fans in Madrid.
You're not wrong. The NFL don't want to get in like a 20-minute argument over this first.
No,
topic.
I'm done. I've said my piece.
The NFL, it's not going to change, right? I mean, they're adding more and more of these international games. You got, I think it's Spain, Brazil, Germany, Mexico, England. I mean, it just seems like every year there's more games added, so it's not going to change. I think of all the places like they could have gone, Spain's probably a pretty cool spot for Jaden Daniels and the troops to experience. I would pencil in a bye week 12 personally. I think that's probably in the works. If they don't have a bye week 12, I'd have a bigger problem with this. And NFL gave up doing what's best for the players related to schedule a long time ago. You wouldn't have Thursday night games without a bye previous to it. You wouldn't have Christmas Day games. You wouldn't have a bunch of stuff. So all that's been thrown out the window. So you make some great points. It's not going to change. They're not going to do it in the preseason, even though that might make sense. I think they just need to make sure that the players are taken care of as best they can. I don't know that a trip to Europe is that much different than a trip to the West Coast, except the clock flips the other way. But coming back from it, as long as they get the bye, I'm cool.
I'm not into it. I've expressed my take on it.
I'm happy it's this one and not the Brazil one.
That too.
That's what I was relieved by.
I'm also happy it's the Dolphins because they kind of stink. So even if we bring our B game, I think we'll be okay.
It's going to be salty Dom if we lose that game, and there's a 9 a.m. post-game pod.
Hell yeah, it's going to be salty Dom. Absolutely.
He's going to have the crumbs from his biscuit on his beard.
Absolutely,
and
because you know what?
One hand.
You know what I've learned? I try to pride myself on not being that whiny fan. But you know what I've learned? All over Twitter and X, all I see is whiny fans. Even Super Bowl champion whiny fans. So you know what? F it. I'm going to whine. If I think it's time to whine, I'm whining. That's what I got. Speaking of whining,
can I interrupt for a second? So we're just since that
you might have saved me there. That was going to be a really bad segue. You might have saved me. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It could have been a great segue. I just want to say we didn't really set this pod up. So if you're 7 minutes in, thank you. But we're going to do NFL and Commanders headlines. So we're going to get into a lot of great stuff here. Broad range of topics all across the NFL.
Yeah.
So just stick with us. A lot more to talk about than the Commanders going to Spain.
Folks, believe it or not, here on the Dom and Pop podcast, we're going to talk about the Commanders and we're going to talk about the NFL.
Subscribe.
It's really important that we clarified that. We're going to talk Commanders and NFL.
I want to give the people a little bit of
just so you all know. The basket weaving topics did get cut. We're not going to talk basket weaving anymore.
Oh, no, count on my DJ to set the pod up. That's all I'm saying.
And my Boston insider right on cue. Anyways, how many primetime games do you think the Commanders will get today? How many do you think?
Real quick. I say 5. Do we count now? Let's make a rule. Does this count as a primetime game? I think anything that's not a standard 4 o'clock game. If it's a Christmas game, if it's this international game, let's agree to that being the rule, right? 5 non-standard 1 and 4 o'clock games. I'm going to say at least minimum 5. I'll probably bet the over on 5.
I got a better question for you. How many additional primetime games do you think we get? Because every team gets a Monday night, every team gets a Thursday night, every team gets a Sunday night. So how many additional do you think we get?
I'm not sure that's true.
Every team at least gets a Thursday and a Monday.
I think every team at least gets one primetime game. I don't think they get one of each.
I've watched this team be pretty stinky play on Monday and Sunday night. I think sometimes you can get flexed out of your Sunday night games if they're later in the season.
What's the difference in the question? Like I said, 5.
5.
Total.
All right.
Total.
Pop goes 5. Pop's rolling with the 5. JD 5.
It might be low.
I think we get a couple more than than average. So yeah, I'll go with 5 as well. I think I like that. I don't think we're going to play 8 games in prime time, but I think it'll be 5, and I think it's going to be a
Somewhere
lot
in
of.
that range.
I think what it's going to be more than anything is it's going to be a lot of 425 games. It's going to be a lot of Fox Game of the Week situations, which I know aren't Pop's favorite. I love them because I wake up,
Yeah, you got the
coffee, a little
3 hour
gambling.
advantage.
They got the 3 hour advantages. It's hard living on
Pop's
the
going to
Best
be
Coast,
grinding this year.
but I think it's going to be looking like that. And speaking of looking like, how are the boys looking at OTA's Commanders rookie minicamp? I tell you what, Pop, the kid didn't bring his A stuff for segues today. It's just
Sorry.
not there. But we're
You're
trucking
doing
through
all right. You're bringing the energy. It's all good.
we're trucking through it anyways. It just gotta,
I mean, it help
look at
if
the
you read
tape.
the outline before the pod, but it's all right.
It would help if I got it more than 3 minutes in advance. But anyways, the OTAs and rookie minicamp was
You're
obviously
welcome.
happening this week. We're seeing the guys back out there. Jaden Daniels looking kind of swole, huh? Hit the weight room?
Apparently, I never thought that. I thought the whole Jaden Daniels too skinny, spindly stuff was all overblown. He's wiry. Yeah, if he beefed up a little bit, want to make sure he keeps that speed and elusiveness going. But I'm sure
Yeah.
we always knew he'd probably bulk up a little bit. So
yeah, and it's also just a result of like these young men are still growing up. I mean, they're so young,
true.
they're still like fully developing and all that. But yeah, I think Jaden looks a little bit bigger.
They're not on the other end of that hill like you.
No.
Past your prime.
Yeah, wake up, your foot hurts one day, hurts for 2 weeks. It's incredible. But yeah, I got Jaden's definitely looking a little swole. Debo's looking like he trimmed down a little bit. But this is the kind of stuff we talk about in May, man.
Debo's looking good.
Yeah, we're just checking out these guys and hoping to get some optimism out of it. But you got any bold predictions for the rookie class, Pop? Speaking of getting some optimism, we got obviously. Do you want me to run through the whole rookie class, or you think we got to memorize it? Okay, cool.
No, we just had that there for reference.
You got any bold predictions there from the rookie class, Pop?
I think my bold prediction is Jalen Lane. I think is going to contribute. I think he's going to make splash. I think he's going to be in the rotation a lot more than we think. That could spell really bad news for your boy Luke Mack, but
my boy,
I think Jalen Lane can really contribute, and I think not a rookie, but I think Deebo Samuel is going to have a splash year too.
Love it, love it. I think
I'm excited about Jalen Lane.
My bold prediction for this rookie class is I think that 7th round running back, Jackery Krosky Merritt, I think he gets some meaningful touches by the end of the season. And
he's got to make that roster. So you think he's making the roster?
I think he makes the roster for sure.
How many running backs we keeping?
Chris Rodriguez is not signed to a roster deal. That is a practice squad deal.
No, but you got 3 guys ahead of Chris Rodriguez on the depth chart right now.
You got Eckler, you got McNichols, and then you got
There's a bit of a numbers game that's interesting here, right? At receiver and at running back, because typically you keep 6 of one, 3 of the other, or 4 of one, 5 of the other. And then if you keep 10 among those 2 position groups, this would be a good pod topic for another one. Then you got to go maybe 1 less offensive lineman because you're going to keep 3 tight ends and you're going to keep at least 2 quarterbacks, right? So this numbers game is going to be a good problem to have when you start to build depth, but good pod topic for another time.
I think Krosky Merritt makes the roster. You spend a draft pick on him at the end of the day. And I think because of the oft-injured nature of our running back room between Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, I think at a certain point, he's going to get his name called. And I think if he doesn't earn it prior to that with his preseason performance, I think he might be one of those guys that really breaks out in the preseason, especially when you're trying to keep offenses very vanilla. You're playing against a lot of backups. This is a guy that's probably going to get a lot of touches. I'd be surprised if you see Robinson at all in the preseason or Eckler for that matter. So I think he's going to get a lot of touches in the preseason, probably be a breakout candidate. And I think he's going to be a guy that, if Brian Robinson gets a hamstring in week 8, if Austin Eckler rolls his ankle in week 3, this is a guy that maybe starts to get some touches, and all of a sudden you go, I don't know if we're giving the football back to the other guy.
I tell you, it
And
makes me wonder, right? It makes me wonder whether, I still wonder whether they would be open to moving the running back. I don't know. I guess we're getting ahead of ourselves on a seventh round pick,
so
but
that's
they obviously didn't want this kid going the UDFA route
yeah.
because that's kind of your whole deal, and that especially if you're picking late in the seventh, right? You're just kind of trying to grab a kid that you don't want to have to fight for in UDFA, right? So
Well, so to that point, I think with him, what's unique about his situation, I look, seventh round picks do not pan out all that often. Let's be clear about that.
no,
I don't expect this kid to turn into an all pro and pan out and be a stud. But there are a few factors that play into why I have a little more hope for him than I do the average. One, it's a shaky room. Two, he likely would not have been a seventh round pick if he was able to play this year. His eligibility issues pushed him off the board. And his eligibility issues were kind of junk from my understanding of it. Probably would have been a guy that maybe makes his way into the fifth round in what was a stacked running back class. So even then, he's pushed down the board even further. Three, you've got Anthony Lynn, Cliff Kingsbury, a good to great offensive line, and you've got a dual threat quarterback. All of those things really help a running back excel. So I
don't
love
all those
this.
same things really bode well for a healthy Brian Robinson, though?
Sure, absolutely. But they
Yeah, I
give
mean, we talked about him being Montgomery-esque in his capability, and if he can get a, thunder and lightning situation. I think he's just been nicked up, and he's in a contract year,
yeah.
so I'm rooting for him.
Well, that's the other side of it, right? Is with Merritt, you've got him for 4 years now. So Robinson, maybe this is a guy that breaks out more next year or earns some more touches next year, the year after, et cetera. Who knows? I mean, Pacheco was a seventh round pick, worked great for Kansas City.
So they're going to need that next gen of backs, right? For sure.
Exactly, because all the backs on the roster are old.
But back to Jalen Lane for a minute. I mean, I think, his measurables in terms of just being, a top three in metrics on the 40, on the what do they call it, the 10-yard shuttle and all that stuff. He's got that great combination of quickness and just raw down the field speed. I think he looks the part. I think he suffered from just poor quarterback play and poor team play overall at Vatech. I'm really thinking he's going to make a splash. We'll see what happens. It's always easy to say that about these rookies, but
I agree. I think it's and from what I've heard, Jalen Lane, the person, is exceptional off the field guy, locker room guy. I mean, you expect none else for what they draft here. But the reason I haven't highlighted him as much, Pop, is I almost take it as a foregone conclusion that he's going to be a beast in this offense. I'm really excited for what he can bring. I think he brings that last element we were missing, that over the top vertical speed. But that brings us to.
But his specialty too, like the other thing that's exciting about him, just real quick. I keep blowing up your leads. I'm sorry.
It's May podcast.
I think the other thing too is he's a great yak guy. So it's not going to be all the vertical stuff either. If you get him in the slot, get him the ball with some space in front of him. He's another weapon that nobody's going to be thinking about stopping. Mm-hmm. They're going to be thinking about stopping Jaden, Debo, and Terry, right?
And
so get this guy some balls in space. You never know.
To your point about the roster debacle with the returners and whatever, maybe you can keep only 5 receivers on the active when you have Jalen Lane because he can return both kicks and punts. So that changes the way.
I think Lane and McCaffrey will be your returners. I think they'll share that duty because McCaffrey did a good job turning the kicks last year. So one thing he did pretty decent.
Yeah. Then why in the world do you have Austin Eckler on the roster? But anyways, all that stuff's going to get resolved. I think that could be a surprise cut candidate. But getting into more stuff and getting into guys that have been cut, Jadeveon Clowney was released by the Carolina Panthers. I'll keep it short. Absolutely kick the tires on this guy. He's 1 season removed away from a 9.5 sack season. Was great with the Ravens, kind of had like a revival. Ravens let him go, and they missed him dearly last year. So What do you do there, Pop? Would you be interested in kicking the tires on Jadeveon Clowney?
100%. I mean, this complements the topic we had. One of our 5 questions last week is, should you sign an edge? And we said absolutely. And this adds him to the mix with the Von Millers, the Matt Judons, the Preston Smiths, the Zadarius Smiths. Is another guy in the mix. And I think they absolutely should add a veteran edge. And why not Jadeveon Clowney if you deem him to be the best of that remaining group. So I hope, whoever they evaluate to be the best of that remaining group, if it's Jadeveon Clowney, do it.
Amen.
Do it. I'd be happy, because the thing is, you can afford at this point to make these guys more of a situational. And you look at Dante Fowler last year, if you play Clowney in those kind of minutes, and you're not expecting him to be a 3-down guy, 100% of the snaps guy, he could do some damage, I think.
Yep, I agree. I think this is a guy that you got to bring in if you can.
He said, his quote was, "There's a lot more left in my tank than people think," and he was just, there's a train wreck in Carolina last year.
Yeah, and it's a guy that,
a team like that.
Well, this is a guy that, if I remember correctly, I made a case for us bringing him in free agency last year. And I might have hallucinated that, but I think
just
that's
go
what
with
happened. And he missed a lot of time with some tough injuries, and those guys, sometimes, you saw with Dante Fowler last year, those guys can have more in the tank later in their career because there's less tread on the tires. And if they rehab and they get that strength back, they slowly start to kind of get back to speed.
Yeah.
I'm all over it. And yeah, it was such a train wreck in Carolina last year. I mean, one edge rusher does not make a difference on a 10-team defense that, probably 9 of the guys out there were not NFL starters, and they're starting anyways. So it just goes to show, I think he's got something left for us. So I definitely bring him in. And that brings us to the NFL draft in DC in 2027, probably the biggest news headline out of everything that's happened this week. Somehow we got into it last, but there's not too much more to say about it.
It's old news by now. The Commanders are not sinking their big announcements with Dom Pop. First was the stadium on a Monday after we recorded. Now it's the NFL draft on a Monday after we recorded. So I didn't want to lead with it and spend 20 minutes on something that's kind of old news at this point. Fair. I love it. The renderings of it being done on the Capitol, and I think they go hand in hand. The fact they announced the stadium and now they get the draft kind of gives you more certainty that this stadium deal is going to push through, because I don't think you get one without the other. That's just going to be an awesome scene. They're predicting over 1 million people over the 3 days. Will Dom and Pop be there? Won't they be there? We'll see. But I think it's awesome. I mean, you talk about an epic heater. I mean, our owner is on an epic heater right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just, he's just doing incredible things. Like, that's just the end of the day. Like, all this stuff Dan talked about wanting to do and, blah, blah, blah. It's like, in 2 years, you find a franchise quarterback, which, some of that's luck. Let's call it what it is. A lot of that's luck. You got very lucky that Jaden Daniels happened to be existing on the same timeline that you bought the team on, right? But you find a franchise quarterback, you find a great head coach that I think, regardless of Jaden Daniels, would be the right guy for this situation. You find the best general manager available in football. Available is a key word there, but the best general manager available in football to run your operations. So you're setting the franchise up for success for the next 20 years. And then on top of that, off the field, you get a stadium deal at RFK, and now you're bringing the NFL draft to Washington, D.C. in 2027. I couldn't be more just shocked by a guy that you just talk about, somebody who put his money where his mouth is. He said, this is now my number one priority. This is what I want to do, bring prosperity back to DC in football. And here we are.
I think this is becoming, it's coming evident that it's becoming bigger than just, what the Commanders want. I think the NFL, some very powerful people in the country, the city, they're all in lockstep of wanting to put, a crown jewel stadium in the capital city with all of the opportunities that brings. and then this draft, kind of leading into that. It's exciting times for sure.
Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun.
Super, super exciting. Can't get enough of it. Moving forward, you want to go a little more around the league now, Pop?
Let's go around the league. NFL headlines. We promised it. Keep our promises.
Let's do it. So, first headline, Derek Carr retires. What's next for the Saints? They drafted Tyler Shook, I think. I think you pronounced that GH as a K, if I remember correctly. Shook last month.
We'll go with that.
In the second round. I have a feeling we're not going to be saying his name for
ahead of Shedeur Sanders, by the way.
Ahead of Shedeur Sanders. And Spencer Rattler is also there. And then you've got Jake Haener there, who was an absolute dog against the Commanders. But New Orleans went 0-7 last season in games that Carr didn't start. If it weren't for the Tyler Shook pick, you'd go ahead and say, well, clearly they're just tanking for a quarterback next year. But that is just such a waste of a second-round pick if you're not planning on using the guy.
There was a reason they picked him, right? They probably knew the Carr was not contemplating this situation.
Yeah.
I mean, Derek Carr, I think, is, a kid that I, at times, thought had a lot of potential. There was a few years back where I was saying, hey, he'd be one that I'd like to bring over. Thank God we didn't do that because, obviously, it just hasn't turned out great. Either, his remaining time in LA since then and his time in New Orleans, you have to say, has to have been a disappointment, a lot to do with injury. But they got to do something, whether it's, Cousins, which we'll get into a little bit next, or one of the Browns, multiple quarterbacks. Shedeur's looking good, by the way, apparently in early reports.
Of course, he's a good player.
Heard it here first. But I would think they've got to do something at quarterback, bring in another vet. That's just banking on Tyler Shook or Spencer Rattler or Jake Haener. That's almost like I don't know. It would be atrocious if that happened.
I got a bridge to sell you if you think those guys are starting NFL quarterbacks. But that brings me to my next question, Pop. Is Derek Carr the best bad quarterback of all time?
I don't even know how to answer that question.
It's objectively a bad quarterback.
Trying to process that.
When you start Derek Carr, you expect to lose. But is he the best one? He somehow convinced us through being a bad quarterback. He somehow convinced us that he was at least worth one of the 32 jobs, and I don't think he ever was looking back on it. Was he the best bad quarterback of all time? I think so. I think he's the best bad quarterback of all time. Just a fun little aside there. Pop didn't want to play the game with me. That's okay.
I don't know how to answer that question. I wasn't prepared. That's your bit.
Too deep for Pop. That's okay. Where will Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins play? A little Ron Burgundy action there in 2025. They've been adamant that they're comfortable with Cousins being Penix's backup. They are paying him $30 million this year anyways, 27.5 to be exact, but we'll round up for the headlines. Does he play? I mean, you wanted to say Cleveland for a while. Is New Orleans in play?
Well, I mean, you have to, right? You have to think they are. Pittsburgh still needs a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Falcons is interesting, right? When they signed Cousins, they couldn't have thought that they were going to draft a quarterback. They must have obviously realized that maybe health was more risk in Kirk than they had originally thought when they got him in the building. So they pulled the trigger for Penix, which, looking back, was a good decision. Having those two actions happen back to back, I'm not sure is how you run an organization normally, but I think again, getting Penix, getting that young guy to sit behind Kirk, and I guess he ended up playing a lot faster than they planned. But they obviously don't want to just cut Kirk Cousins, and that's what the rest of the league is waiting for them to do. So, in that respect, I think it's a smart move from Atlanta to but I don't feel like it's a good situation because Kirk's going to want to play. Maybe, again, we saw with Rodgers too, like that year one after an Achilles is not easy, but maybe he's stronger. He's more healthy. He's more able to perform. Well, he was bad last year. So the
Awful.
question you got to ask yourself, if you're an NFL evaluator, is there anything left in that tank? And you cannot be sure because he was horrific last year.
It's just that's why
Really bad.
That's why I was so sad when Kirk tore his Achilles at the time that he did, because he was playing on fire that year. He was like on pace for like, is this the Kirk Cousins MVP year? Could it be? And tore his Achilles. And you know, when guys have that type of injury that late in their career, and especially for him, I think it was his right Achilles, and that's where you're pushing off to throw the football. You just they can't trust that. They're not able to kind of step into and fire the ball up the same way. If I was Kirk, I would really just, I mean, if he wants to just go be a backup and get his $30 million, do it. I don't know how retirement affects what's left on his contract, but I would really.
He's quoted as saying he wants to start somewhere. That's his quote. So
okay. Then I mean, maybe if you're a desperate team like Pittsburgh, you
don't retire. Like not the way he's played his career. He's not giving up $30 million.
I know, but that's to my point. You've made all that money. I would rather just go out with my head held high at that point. You're
not giving up $30 million either.
I don't know. When you've got $200 million, what does it matter? I mean, he's probably made $300-400 million in his career. What does it matter? $30 million is like a dinner date at that point. I don't know. I don't see him being successful wherever he goes. I'll put it that way. Which brings us to our next question. Will Saquon Barkley's production drop off in 2025? Yes. He had 345 carries, 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, 5.8 yards per carry, 33 catches, 278 yards in the air, 8.4 yards averaged there, and 2 touchdowns. It has to. Even if he might have a 1,500-yard season and still be the best back in the NFL, but you can't. He's not going to do back-to-back 2,000 yards.
Yeah, the way I'd answer that question, it's kind of a setup question. It's just to talk about the topic, but maybe just put a little bit of spice into it. If he's healthy, he's going to be a weapon. He's going to be a problem. And whether or not he gets to, it's kind of like the argument that some people make about the Commanders, maybe an 11-win season this year, with a tougher schedule, is just as impressive as a 12-win season last year, right? You've just got to see the circumstances. He's going to be a weapon. But sure, teams are going to go in playing the Eagles, first and foremost, trying to stop Saquon. That's going to be their number one priority.
Yeah.
And then, can he stay healthy? Injuries have been a problem in his career up to this point. So you've got to bet the under if you set the over-under on his, getting 2,000 yards again back-to-back season. But I got a question for you. He's getting a little soft. We're seeing him at the Met Gala. We're seeing him. We're seeing him at the White House. We're seeing him playing golf with the Prez. Is he enjoying a little bit of these riches? Finally has a breakout year, wins a Super Bowl, isn't trying to carry a team on his back like the Giants. Maybe getting a little soft. We think. Eagles fans?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
What's the report on that?
I don't know. I think he probably got his culo kicked by a 80-year-old man at golf would be my guess. But I think, when you look at it, man, I just used a little artificial intelligence here, pulled up the stats. Running backs with 2,000-yard rushing single season and their next year performance. The best performance here is Barry Sanders with 1,400 yards. And he played 16 games. You have Terrell Davis in 98, rushed for 211 yards. You have Derrick Henry most recently. He only had 937 yards the next season. He had the injury. He was on pace, and then he had the foot injury. You had DeMarco Murray in 2014, had 1,800 yards, so not quite 2,000, but close. He only ran for 702 the next year. Same thing with Adrian Peterson after his MVP year in 2012. In 2013, he only ran for 1,200 yards. So where does that other – I mean, in the best case scenario historically, where does that other 800 yards in production come from, and how different does the Eagles' season look without that coming from the running game. I'm certain between Smith and Brown and Goddard, they can find the rest of those yards. And they did bring in A.J. Dillon, who's a very capable back and can kind of play that same Saquon role to kind of thin out his workload a little bit, maybe keep some more longevity. But, I mean, mathematically speaking, there will be a drop-off.
Yeah, it's most likely. He's a stud. No,
100%.
Whether his stats match last year's or not, he's a complete stud. He's a problem. He's only 28.
Yeah.
So,
fun anyway, topic. Great topic. Steelers trade George Pickens to the Cowboys for a third-round pick. So, at one hand, you think, wow, the Cowboys got good value for the player that George Pickens is today. And then the other hand, you look at the players that Mike Tomlin has traded away, specifically at the wide receiver position, and what they pan out to be. What do you think, Pop? Where do you land on that?
I think this could turn out to be one of those trades where you understand it from both teams' point of view. The Steelers clearly don't think he's, I put smart move in question mark, and I kind of left that open-ended, right? It might be one of those, is it a smart move for the Steelers? Yeah. He's just not a great locker room guy. He's been late to meetings. Apparently he was late, came off injury for in a game and was healthy, and he was late to that next game. So there's, he's just a bit of a head case for sure, it seems like, and not necessarily team first guy. But for the Cowboys, why not? He's a heck of a talent. And he's a third round, you're giving up a third round pick, and he's in the last year of his contract. Why not? So I think it's one of those where you can understand the trade from both points of view. If you're the Cowboys, to me, if you're Jerry Jones or whoever, you sit him down and go, look, dude, you're in a prove it year. Come in, do the right thing, and we'll see if we pick up if we extend you, right? So he's got an opportunity to prove the critic wrongs. I wish he wasn't playing for the Cowboys. I would be rooting for him otherwise, but maybe it's a smart move on both sides. I think it was one of those where the Steelers knew they didn't want to keep him around. Quarterback situation over there is dicey. It's not going to make him any happier in that locker room. So smart from them, and they might. You had a great point. I mean, if you want to make it, the tweet you send out about the situation, I thought was a great point.
Go ahead. I'll remember.
If you remember, you said that you think that the Steelers are in a rebuild, and this made sense from that point of view. And they might need to go into tank mode, especially with the quarterback situation that they're in.
I think that's what this whole thing is setting up for. I think the Steelers are saying, hey, we've got a pretty good roster. We've got a good coach. The quarterback situation's a disaster. You know what? Pretty good quarterback class coming out next year. Let's nuke this thing. Let's blow it up as best we can. And let's, let Mike Tomlin win 3-4 games. And then let's wrap it up. That would be my take on that situation.
No,
I think they're going to try and get themselves a quarterback next year and just resolve this thing once and for all.
It's interesting. The NFL is just a gift that keeps giving, because going into figuring out what we were going to talk about on this podcast, I'm thinking, man, it's the slowest part of the season. There's not much going on. And you look at all these, any one of these topics could have been a whole podcast in and of itself, or a few of them, any of it. So no, always something great to talk about when it comes to, with the pod, with the NFL and the pod. So get us some comments. We would love to hear what you think about each of these topics. Is George 100%. Pickens a good move or not? We'll see. I hope it's a horrible move for the Cowboys.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think it probably will be, most likely, if you look at Jerry Jones and Mike Tomlin's
I think it was worth a
record.
swing, if I'm kind of separating myself. They need another weapon.
I think that locker room is going to be a disaster. But let's wrap this thing up, Pop. Without further ado, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thank you all for another great week, and hail to the Commanders.
Hail.